May 1945, the middle of the North Atlantic. Aboard a German submarine running for the enemy's coast, 2 bunks are curtained off. Behind the curtains lie 2 officers of the Imperial Japanese Navy. They have been dying for a day and a half. No one is trying to save them. Their war has just ended. Not with a bullet, not with a depth charge, but with a radio broadcast. And in the steel compartments around them sits a cargo that will outlive everyone on board. 10 sealed containers, stenciled with a code. U-235, uranium, bound for Japan, now sailing, slowly, toward the United States. This is U-234, the last great secret of the Kriegsmarine, a submarine the size of a small warship, packed with the dying Reich's most valuable technology, a jet fighter in crates, guided missiles, advanced radar, and half a ton of uranium oxide. Its mission, reach Tokyo and keep Japan fighting. It sailed as Germany collapsed. And what happened aboard, the lie, the deaths, and the cargo that vanished into the American atomic program, is one of the strangest true stories of the Second World War. By 1945, Germany and Japan were allies who could barely reach each other. Every surface route was blockaded. The only bridge left between Berlin and Tokyo ran underwater. The Germans called these exchange runs Yanagi missions, technology one way, rubber, tin, and tungsten the other, and the ocean ate them. Boat after boat, German and Japanese alike, vanished en route, torpedoed by submarines that had read their coded schedules. For the final attempt, the Kriegsmarine chose U-234, a Type 10B, the largest class of U-boat Germany ever built, nearly 90 meters long, over 1,700 tons. Only 8 were ever completed, and by 1945 nearly all lay on the seabed. She had been designed to lay mines from 30 vertical shafts punched through her hull, now gutted and converted into cargo holds for a single desperate delivery. Even her keel was ballasted with treasure: mercury, optical glass, strategic metal. The manifest read like the Reich's last will and testament. A disassembled Messerschmitt 262, the world's first operational jet fighter, a guided glide bomb, the newest homing torpedoes, tons of blueprints, rockets, radar, infrared fuses. And in the mine shafts, 10 containers holding 560 kilograms of uranium oxide, marked, container by container, U-235. 12 passengers came aboard. A Luftwaffe general in a long leather coat, the engineer who ran jet fighter production, a radar scientist named Heinz Schlicke, and 2 Japanese naval officers, Hideo Tomonaga and Genzo Shoji, carrying their nation's hopes home. On April 15, 1945, U-234 slipped out of Kristiansand, Norway, and vanished beneath the Atlantic. Her captain was Johann Heinrich Fehler. The crew called him Dynamite, a nickname earned blowing up captured ships aboard the raider Atlantis. This was his first submarine command, and the voyage nearly ended before it began. During snorkel trials off Norway, U-234 collided underwater with another U-boat and limped in for repairs. Now patched and loaded, his orders read, "Around the Cape of Good Hope, on to Japan." For 16 straight days, the boat never surfaced, breathing through a snorkel, crawling past Iceland at walking pace while Allied aircraft hunted overhead. When the head valve slammed shut in the swells, the diesels sucked the air out of the boat, and 63 sets of ears popped in the dark. 63 men, sealed in with the crates, the mercury, and the uranium. They sailed through the death of their country. On April 30th, Hitler died in Berlin. On May 8th, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Aboard U-234, deep in the Atlantic, the news arrived on May 10th through the radio shack, the voice of Grand Admiral Donitz himself. "My U-boat men, you have fought like lions. Lay down your arms." The radio man, Wolfgang Hirschfeld, copied the message that ended his world. Fehler refused to believe it. 5.5 years of war had taught him that the enemy owned the airwaves. This could be bait, a trap to lure boats to the surface. So he did something remarkable. He called another U-boat, U-873, captain to captain, and asked. The answer came back. "It's true. It's over. The war was over. The mission was meaningless." and U-234 was alone in the middle of the ocean, a floating museum of a country that had ceased to exist. Fehler gathered his officers. Every option was on the table: sail home to a Germany in ruins, run for Argentina and internment under a neutral flag, or surrender, but to whom? Canada and Britain, Fehler reckoned, would hold his men for years. The Americans, he judged, would treat them best and send them home soonest. It was a captain's cold calculation, made 12,000 kilometers from a homeland that no longer existed. He chose America, but he told no one outside the hull the truth. On May 12th, Fehler radioed the Allies. U-234 was proceeding to Halifax, Nova Scotia, to surrender. It was a lie. The moment the message was sent, he swung the boat southwest and ran at full speed for the American coast, for Newport News, Virginia. Ashore, plotters compared his reported position with his radio bearings, and the numbers didn't match. The last great U-boat of the war was running a deception course, and now the U.S. Navy was racing to catch a submarine that was trying to be caught by the right country. For 2 men aboard, surrender was not an option their code allowed. Tominaga, the submarine designer; Shoji, the aviation expert. Japan was still at war, to be delivered, alive, into enemy hands, with everything they knew, was unthinkable. In their shared compartment, they wrote farewell letters. Then they swallowed overdoses of luminol, a sedative from the boat's medical stores, and lay down in their bunks. The drug was slow. It took some 36 hours. The Germans found them, understood, and let them go. Tominaga had crossed half the world by submarine once before, in 1943, to reach Germany. Now, 12,000 kilometers from home, he entrusted his personal effects to Fehler and closed his eyes. Fehler stopped the engines. Wrapped in hammocks, waited. The 2 officers were committed to the Atlantic they had failed to cross. On May 14th, south of the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, the destroyer escort USS Sutton came out of the fog and put a prize crew on U-234's deck, the last major U-boat surrender of the Atlantic War. Fehler, ever the showman, had already jettisoned his Enigma machines and the most sensitive Japanese documents into the deep. 5 days later, the giant submarine was led into Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, New Hampshire, into a carnival of flashbulbs. Reporters swarmed the pier. They fixated on the Luftwaffe general, Ulrich Kessler, descending the gangway in his ankle-length leather coat and iron cross, answering questions in polished English. The press saw a fallen general. They had no idea what was still sitting in the mine shafts below. Behind the fences, the real work began. Interrogators sat down with the passengers and struck gold. The radar scientist, Schlick, revealed infrared proximity fuses hidden in the cargo. Within days, he was flown back to the boat to retrieve them himself. The young officer who had loaded the uranium, Karl Pfaff, told the Americans exactly how the containers were packed. When the shafts were opened, men stood over them with Geiger counters, and the counters clicked. In late June 1945, the uranium oxide was quietly shipped south into the custody of the Manhattan Project. Then the paper trail goes dark. What happened to Hitler's uranium? The honest answer: the records have never been fully opened, even now. Most historians conclude it was unenriched oxide, 560 kilograms of raw feedstock that, after processing, might have yielded a few kilograms of bomb-grade material at most. Too raw, and probably too late, to matter for the first bombs. A minority argue it mattered far more, pointing to the gold-lined containers, the timing, and the silence of the archives. The truth is that no one outside a vault can say for certain. What no one disputes is the shape of the story. On August 6, 1945, 11 weeks after U-234 surrendered, a uranium bomb destroyed Hiroshima. The cargo Germany sent to arm Japan's atomic ambitions ended its journey inside the arsenal of the country that used the atom first. History rarely writes irony this cleanly. The men of U-234 scattered into the post-war world. Schlick was recruited into American industry through Operation Paperclip. General Kessler went home and lived into the 1980s. Fehler, dynamite, returned to the sea as a merchant captain. The boat itself was expended as a torpedo target off Cape Cod in 1947 and lies there still, and somewhere in the Atlantic, unmarked, lie Hideo Tomonaga and Genzo Shoji, the last casualties of a mission that failed, carrying a cargo that may have come back, over their ocean, to their own country. The submarine was called U-234. Its cargo was called U-235. The difference between those two numbers is the whole history of the 20th century.